Why your mind sabotages you, even when you want to make good decisions. There's something happening inside your head right now that you have absolutely no control over. And the scary part, you don't even know it's happening. Right now, while you're reading these words, two completely different systems are running inside your brain at the same time, one fast, one slow, and they don't always agree. One of them is reckless, impulsive, and incredibly confident. The other is careful, logical, and honest. And here's the thing that should make you stop and think. The reckless one is usually in charge. Think about the last time you made a decision that you knew was wrong, but made it anyway. Maybe it was staying in a situation you should have walked away from. Maybe it was spending money you didn't have. Maybe it was saying something you immediately regretted. You knew, somewhere inside you, that it wasn't right. And yet, you did it anyway. That wasn't weakness. That wasn't stupidity. That was your brain working exactly the way it was designed to work. Here's what nobody tells you. Your mind has a hidden shortcut system, a kind of mental autopilot that runs almost every single judgment and decision you make throughout the day. This autopilot works lightning fast. It doesn't stop to check the facts. It doesn't ask questions. It just fires. And most of the time, it works fine. Great, even. But when it doesn't, it fails you in ways that feel completely logical, ways that are so convincing, you'd bet your life you were right. Researchers who spent years studying ordinary people making everyday decisions discovered something deeply uncomfortable. We're not nearly as rational as we think we are, not even close. The errors we make aren't random. They're systematic. They repeat in predictable patterns over and over again, in the same kinds of situations, for the same kinds of reasons. It's not a flaw in a few people, it's a flaw in the design. Now here's the question that should be eating at you right now. If your mind has been running on autopilot, making choices, forming beliefs, shaping how you see yourself and the world, without you even realizing it, how many of the things you believe about your life are actually true? Because that's what we're really talking about here, not just bad decisions. We're talking about the invisible architecture of your entire reality, built brick by a system that operates in silence, just below the surface of who you think you are. Let's pull it apart. Slowly. Imagine you're walking into a room full of people, and someone introduces you to a stranger. He's polished, well-dressed, speaks with total confidence. Within seconds, before he's even said 10 words, your brain has already formed an opinion about him. You like him. He seems trustworthy, smart, the kind of person worth listening to. Did you choose to feel that way? Did you consciously weigh the evidence? No, it just happened. And now for the rest of the evening, everything he says is going to land a little softer, seem a little more credible than it actually is. Your brain has been tilted, not by logic, by an impression that arrived before logic had a chance to show up. This is just the beginning, and it gets stranger from here. Here's a question that sounds simple but isn't. When you're making a decision, a real one, the kind that actually matters, are you really the one making it? Because here's what the research says. Most of your decisions are made before your conscious mind even gets involved. The thought arrives. The feeling is already there. The impulse has already fired. And then, your rational brain shows up a half-second late, like someone who missed the meeting but writes the notes anyway, pretending they were there the whole time. Think about that for a second. That careful, thoughtful version of yourself that you identify with, the one that weighs options, thinks things through, makes good choices. It spends most of its time rationalizing decisions that your autopilot already made. Scientists call these two systems by different names, but the simplest way to think about them is this. One is fast, automatic, effortless. The other is slow, deliberate, and exhausting to use. The fast one never sleeps. It's running right now, quietly scanning everything around you, forming impressions, linking ideas, building stories. It reads faces, it senses tone, it detects danger before you've consciously noticed anything wrong. It's incredibly powerful. It's also lazy in a very specific way. It doesn't like hard questions. So when it gets one, it does something almost sneaky. It secretly swaps the hard question for an easier one and answers that instead. Here's a real example that was used to test this. Imagine someone describes a person as shy, introverted, helpful, someone who loves order, detail, and precision. Then you're asked, is this person more likely to be a librarian or a farmer? Almost everyone says librarian. It fits the picture, right? But here's the thing. In the US, there are roughly 20 male farmers for every male librarian. So statistically, even if this description perfectly matches a librarian stereotype, the odds still favor farmer by a mile. Your brain didn't calculate that. Your brain looked at the description, matched it to a mental image, and called it done. The statistics never even came up. And that's not stupidity. That's your autopilot doing exactly what it was built to do. Find patterns fast. It's a feature. It's just that in certain situations, it quietly destroys your ability to see what's actually true. Now here's where it gets personal. Think about a belief you hold strongly right now, about yourself, about your life, about someone you know. A belief that feels obvious, almost like it doesn't even need explaining, like it's just true. Where did that belief come from? Because if your fast system was the one who built it, and chances are it was, then it was built on impressions, not evidence, on patterns, not proof, on what was easy to think, not what was actually right. And your slow, rational mind, the one that could have checked the work, it probably signed off without reading the report. Because here's the secret your brain never wanted you to know. The slow system is lazy. It avoids effort whenever it can. It's like a supervisor who trusts the fast worker too much, because checking every decision takes time, takes energy, takes focus, and your brain hates wasting energy on things that seem to already be handled. So most of the time, it lets the autopilot run. And the autopilot, fast, confident, automatic, rolls on, making choices you believe are yours, building a version of reality that feels completely solid, even when it's full of cracks. You've probably had this experience before. You're watching a movie or reading a story, and you're completely inside it. The tension is real, your heart is actually beating faster. You know, logically, somewhere in the back of your mind, that it's fiction, that the danger isn't real. But your body doesn't care about that. Your nervous system responds anyway. That's not weakness. That's the exact same mechanism that drives most of your thinking. Your brain doesn't always distinguish between what's real and what it believes is real. And that gap between what's true and what your brain has decided is true is where your biggest blind spots live. Here's an example that researchers use to make this concrete. Take a look at two lines. One appears longer than the other. It's so obvious you'd almost feel silly measuring them. But when you actually measure them, they're identical. Even after you know they're the same length, you still see one as longer. Your fast system can't be turned off. It keeps generating the illusion, even after your rational mind has corrected the record. Knowing the truth doesn't stop you from seeing the lie. Now apply that to your life. How many longer lines are you walking around with right now? Situations where you know intellectually that something isn't quite right, but you still see it the old way. Still feel it the old way. Because a deeper part of your mind built that picture a long time ago and hasn't let go. Maybe it's how you see your own potential. Maybe it's how you read other people's intentions. Maybe it's the story you tell yourself about why certain things keep happening to you. The illusion runs, and it runs quietly. Here's something that should genuinely rattle you. In a famous experiment, volunteers were asked to watch a video of two teams passing a basketball. Their job was simple: count the passes made by one team. In the middle of the video, someone in a gorilla costume walks across the court, stops, beats their chest, and walks away. The gorilla is visible for a full 9 seconds. Nearly half the people watching, people with perfectly normal vision, never saw it. Not because they were careless, because they were focused. And focus, the very thing we're told makes us sharp, makes us effective, actually creates enormous blind spots. Your attention is a limited resource. When it goes one place, it leaves other places completely unguarded. So here's the uncomfortable question. What gorillas are walking through your life right now, while you're too focused on counting something else to notice? Because your brain doesn't just miss things visually, It misses things emotionally, relationally, professionally. It filters out anything that doesn't match the story it's already decided is true. And then, when the thing finally becomes impossible to ignore, it rewrites the memory, so it seems like you knew all along. That's called hindsight bias. And it's brutal, because it makes you feel more certain, more capable, more in control than you actually are. Which means you walk into the next situation with the same blind spots, but even more confidence. The faster your autopilot becomes, the harder it is to catch its mistakes. And the harder it is to catch its mistakes, the more convinced you become that you're not making any. So where does this leave you? Somewhere between unsettled and aware, and that's actually exactly where you need to be. Because the first step toward thinking more clearly is knowing that clarity doesn't come naturally. It has to be earned, deliberately, against the grain of how your brain wants to operate. Your slow, rational mind isn't broken. It's just expensive. It costs mental energy every time you use it. So your brain, always looking to conserve, quietly hands the controls back to the autopilot as soon as it can. The autopilot flies mostly smooth, but it has programmed biases, predictable errors, patterns it follows even when following them leads you off course. And here's the part that matters most. You can't eliminate these errors. You can't just decide to not have them. That's like deciding to not see the longer line. The system runs whether you invite it to or not, but you can learn to recognize the situations where the errors are most likely, where the stakes are high enough that you need to slow down, second-guess the first answer that comes to mind, and ask, is this what I actually think, or is this what my autopilot defaulted to? Here's a real move you can start making right now. When you feel completely, undeniably sure about something, that's exactly when to pause. Certainty is the autopilot's signature. It loves to arrive fast and feel absolute. But absolute certainty about complex things almost always means your slow system stepped back too soon. That you accepted the first comfortable answer instead of sitting with the harder, truer one. Researchers found that even experts, statisticians, doctors, people who know the theory, fall into the same traps when they're not actively watching for them. Knowledge doesn't protect you. Vigilance does. One of the most powerful things you can do is something deceptively simple. Before locking in a decision, ask yourself what a sharp, honest friend would say if they could see exactly how you arrived at it. Not a friend who'd comfort you. One who'd actually tell you the truth. That imagined outside view, and what some call the outside perspective, cuts through a lot of the noise your autopilot generates. Because here's what this all points to. Underneath everything, your mind is capable of extraordinary things. The intuitions that fire fast are often right. The patterns your brain recognizes are real, built from real experience. The autopilot isn't the enemy. It's a partner that sometimes needs supervision. The goal isn't to distrust yourself. The goal is to know when to trust yourself and when to slow down and check. The people who navigate life most effectively aren't the ones who think fastest. They're the ones who've learned to feel the difference between genuine insight and comfortable illusion. Between a decision their whole self stands behind and a shortcut their autopilot quietly slipped past the gate. That skill is learnable. And maybe that's the most important thing to take away from all of this. The mind that sabotages you and the mind that saves you are the same mind. The difference is whether it's running on its own or whether you're paying attention. Right now, someone somewhere is making a decision that will shape the next 5 years of their life. They feel certain. They feel clear. They feel like they know. They don't know that they never checked. Maybe that person is you, or maybe after today, it isn't.